Right, good morning, Eden. Back at the Gemara. So we're middle of Kufte Zion Amud Bay Aleph at 116a. Yeah, 116a, and it's the Mishnah right in the middle of the page. So we're back at the Gemara, but not for too long. Because as you can see, the next Mishnah is at the bottom of the page. So the Mishnah starts in the middle of the page. Kufte Zion, sorry. Kufte Zion, 116a. There's a Mishnah in the middle, and then the Mishnah on the bottom. And we're going to learn the Mishnah in the middle through till the Mishnah on the bottom. God willing, that's the plan. And from there to the Shaldarach and the Code of Jews, and from there to the Code of Jews law, then to the Rebbe's Agada. And the commentary on the Agada. Okay, this section takes us through the bulk of Magid.
What? Magid.
The bulk of Magid. This is where we are in our Seder. We broke our middle matzah, and now it's time to recite the Haggadah. That's what we're holding in the Seder. We spoke about the karpas, we spoke about the charesis, we spoke about the washing of the hand, we spoke about kiddush, we spoke about pre-Yom Tov, making sure you have a good appetite, make sure your meal's set. We went through the whole Seder from the beginning, and now we've just broke our middle matzah. That was the halachas we just spent learning, and how the broken matzah affects the making of the bracha on matzah. They're linked. And now we get to the recitation of the Haggadah itself, which, as we'll see, is very brief in the Gemara. It's just going to say, now you got to ask the questions. Here they are. And now you got to give the answer. Here's the outline. That's it. Not here's the answer and there's the text. Here's the outline. Assuming you either know it already, or you have some way on your own of satisfying the needs of the outline, as we'll explain. But this idea of going from giving the questions and then the answer takes us in the Seder till the point of the end of the Magid, where we say Rabbi Gamliel said, whoever does not discuss the following three items has to fulfill this obligation. That part of the Haggadah, where we touched where we say Pesach, and we explain the Paschal Lamb because Hashem jumped over, and then we say Matzah because the Jews were rushed out of Egypt, and we touched the Matzah, and then we say Maror because the Jews were embittered. That part of the Haggadah is the next Mishnah. This Mishnah takes us all the way till there. So it's quite a few pages in the Haggadah. And if we go to all the commentary in the Haggadah, we would be basically learning the entire Haggadah, which is not what we're doing. We're just going to learn the sections of the Haggadah, the sections of the Rebbe's commentary in the Haggadah that are relevant to the halachas as they are laid out here in the Mishnah. And the same thing with the Shulchan Aruch. We'll go to the halachas that are relevant to the way they're laid out in the Gemara. So we'll get not so much what to do at the Seder, but the halachic underpinnings of what we do at the Seder. Yeah? So let's see. Mishnah. Mazguloi Koisheni. They now fill up his second cup. Right? We're talking about the leader of the Seder. He's at his Roman divan. He's got his attendees taking care of him, serving his table, serving his plate, serving him. So he drank his cup of wine. He dipped his vegetable. He broke his matzah. And now they fill him up the second cup of wine. The Khan. And at this juncture, Haben Shoel Aviv, the child asks the father. You remember, we discussed the dispute between Tosfos and the Rashbam as to whether one is required to ask the four questions or get the kid to ask any question and that's it. Or is the point to invoke curiosity to the point that the kid asks the four questions? Okay? I'm going to translate the words here literally as can, and you tell me how you think. Mazguloi Koisheni, they fill up a second cup of wine for him. The Kana ben Shoel Aviv, and at this point the son asks the father. And if the child doesn't have the wherewithal to ask a question, of Melamdoi, the father teaches him, what's this that different than all of the nights? Which question do we want to ask? We pour him a cup of wine, and now the son asks. If the child doesn't have any knowledge, the father teaches him Manashtana. So you would think, or at least you could read it. You could read it both ways. You could read it as the kid asks the four questions at this point. Which four questions? Well, either he knows himself or you teach him, but the questions are Manashtana. Or you could learn, no, at this point, the kid should ask a question. Now, if he doesn't because he didn't get it, teach him to ask manashtana. But the question he would have asked might have been something else entirely. For example, why are we filling up a second cup of wine now? Right? They fill up a cup of wine, and now the child asks. Remember, we learned this. What's the now? Is the now because at this juncture he asks the question, or is the now because now that we've done another curiosity because we filled up a second cup of wine before we've eaten? Now he's going to ask a question, and if he didn't pick up on it, teach him manashtana. Or at this the juncture the kid asks the question. If he knows the question is good, if he doesn't, teach him manashtana. Right? So you can see how this Mishnah can be learned both ways. And we learn from the Rebbe, it's a combination of them both. Right? Remember, we learned this a while back. Yeah, familiar? Okay, so now. In Dane Das, but the ain Das, but thank you.
Sorry, can I just?
Yeah.
When was the table moved away?
The table was moved away. The table was moved away just before this, and then brought back.
So wouldn't that have been the time? That whole issue there, child of one of the sages raised that issue and said, "Oh, good, you asked that."
That's right. That's where the dispute.
So that happened pre the
right here. It's
one. No?
a couple seconds earlier.
Okay.
It's a couple seconds earlier. So yes, good point.
With the questions then.
Very good question. Very good point. So in other words, what you're saying is, if the point is to get curiosity and the kid should ask any question, that should have already happened. Why are we saying now?
Yeah.
That's your question. Good question. Perhaps the way to think about it is, you do something curious in front of a kid. Okay, makes nothing. He's curious, but okay. Then we start doing 2, 3, 4 things that are curious in a row. He says, hold on a second. What's going on? Because there's been more than one curiosity also. For example, besides from moving the table away, we also had the dipping. The dipping was supposed to be curious.
We learned in the Gemara, I think it was, that whole moving away the table sparked the whole conversation among the sages about the 4 questions.
The dispute I just recited, the dispute I just mentioned was stated over that story.
Right.
That's
okay,
right.
Okay, so I don't know.
So the same dispute follows here.
Okay.
The same dispute about whether we want any question or the manashtana follows through every time there's something that is done for curiosity. The same dispute follows through. Are we doing this because we want him to ask about this? Are we trying to open curiosity to get into the manashtana? Whether we're moving the table away, whether we are filling up a second cup of wine, whether we're dipping twice, which is more directly connected to the questions anyway, and even according to some opinions, why we break the middle matzah here. We don't break the middle matzah because you have to have the broken matzah there, right? But others say...
Right, but in terms of the seder, the order, at some point, one of those has to be the one that sparks the time frame in which...
That's what I'm suggesting. That's why he's saying Khan, because now is your last chance.
So
we did a bunch of curiosity. Exactly.
Time
because now we're about to recite the Haggadah, so you got to ask now. If you don't ask now, we have to teach you to ask because we need to recite the Haggadah. But we've done a bunch of curious things, hoping you'd pick up on them.
Right.
If you didn't, no problem. We'll teach you how to say the manashtana now. If you did, great, according to that opinion. According to the other opinion, thank you so much for being curious. Now here's what I really want you to ask. Okay. So the Khan meaning now, yeah, I guess that would be the right way. Meaning Khan means now is your last chance to get the kid to ask the question. So do your last straw, which is pour the second cup of wine.
Right.
Which is like the strange thing. You drank one, you didn't eat anything, now you have a second one. Yeah, okay. Very good point. Very good clarification.
Why introduce the word hametz on Pesach? Normally, during the year, you can eat hametz. You don't eat all the time matzah during the year.
You could if you want to.
Sure, but why you mention hametz, especially on Pesach? There is no hametz. This question is
let's read. Let's read. We'll see. Let's read it. Okay. Okay. So if the child doesn't have the wherewithal to either know the manashtana already or to pick up on the curiosities you've been doing till now, of Malandai, the father teaches him. What does he teach him? Teaches him the following. Number 1, manashtana halayla ze mikol halaylos. What is different? What makes this night different from all other nights? You see, you could also learn like this. You could learn this phrasing. What is this night different? Let me redo it this way. Where do the quotation marks begin in this Mishnah that the father is teaching the kid? Is right? If the child doesn't have knowledge of a malamda, the father teaches him. Teaches him what? The following words, right? which would mean the first word the father teaches the child is Manish Dana Lailas and Mikol Aleilas. What makes this night different than all the nights? Or you could say of Melamdim Manish Dana Lailas and Mikol Aleilas. The father teaches him what's different about this night than all the nights. And then the quotation marks of what you're teaching the kid begins at the next one. So in other words, the four question, what makes this night different than all of the nights is not a question. It's a statement of what you're teaching the kid. And the questions are the next four. Follow what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So the words Manish Dana Lailas and Mikol Aleilas, what makes this night different than all of the nights, may not be part of what you're actually teaching the kid
What does he mean by all the other nights?
of the year.
You mean Shabbos?
Shabbos, Yom Tov, any other day of the year.
It's
Right.
almost like a prelude to the question.
Correct. It's a prelude. But
to let the child know that
here's what we're teaching you
here's what
about.
you're going to learn and why it's different on this.
Exactly. So we read it in Haggadah as part of like an opener question. Why is it night different all of the nights? Or what makes this night different? It's not lama, it's ma. What makes this night different than all of the nights? Question mark. And then we list the four things that make it different, right? But you could be the Mishnah as the father will teach the kid what makes this night different than all the nights. Namely, here are the four things. So the opener is not a question so much as a statement describing what we're about to do, right? It could be either way. So namely, what are the questions? Question number one, or difference number one is the right way to do it. Difference between tonight and all the nights. All of the nights on the oichling we eat chametz u'matzah. So when we say chametz here, it's not talking about what we're eating now. It's what we eat all the rest of the year. All the rest of the year we eat chametz or matzah.
That's when things different from this
Yeah,
night and all
because it's
this.
not as if matzah is never eaten. Again, remember, first of all, we eat matzah whenever we want, even today. But also remember, matzah today is not the matzah of old. Matzah today is a thin cracker baked especially for Pesach. Matzah of old just meant it didn't rise. And for example, 99% of the breads in the temple were matzah, some of which are very thick.
Not-
Right. And it could be very flavorful.
subtle.
It could be very flavorful also.
Yeah.
It could be a Danish. It just wouldn't be very fluffy. It'd be very dense because it was never risen, but it's matzah. So you either have bread with yeast or bread without yeast is basically the question. But Alay Lazet tonight, kuloi, we are scrupulous to make sure we only have matzah. Difference one. Difference two. For all other nights of the year, we eat all kinds of vegetables. Alay Lazet tonight, marar, we eat bitter herbs. So when it came to matzah, the question was all the nights we eat chametz or matzah, and tonight we eat only matzah. When it came to marar, we didn't say all the nights of the year we eat vegetables and tonight only marar. Because you're not only eating marar, you just had a karpas, you just had a vegetable which wasn't marar. We're asking why we're particular about marar, not asking why it's only marar tonight, because it isn't only marar tonight. When it comes to matzah, we ask why only marar. I think Taisus points that out.
Why only matzah?
Yeah, Taisus pointed that out. Why only matzah? Yes, thank you. Question three, which should not be, might be new to you, because it's not in our Haggadah, and you'll figure out why. On all of the nights of the year, on Oichlin we eat basar tzali, shalok mavushal. We eat meat that's either roasted or cooked, or shalok is like kind of like fried, not exactly like fried, not like deep fried. Yeah.
Roasted, sleep. Like sleep.
Tzali is roasted. Shalok
It's like stir fry.
it's like stir fried, yeah. And mavushal is cooked or boiled.
Well, yeah.
So we have meat of all kinds of cooking. Halal as tonight, kuloi tzali. We only eat roasted meat.
No.
Well, we don't have only roasted meat. Why is he asking this question? You know anyone? What's this question about?
Well, this is about when you actually had carbon.
Temple standing, and he had a carbon. She's asking why in particular to have only roasted meat.
Have it, so,
How many carbonas do we eat on the Seder night?
well, two, right?
Two.
The Hagiga.
So the Pesach offering was roasted, and the Chagiga was what?
I don't know, boiled.
So why are you saying we only eat roasted? When it came to Maror, he said we eat all the vegetables. And tonight we're particular to eat Maror. Not to the exclusion of other vegetables, but we eat Maror. Matzah, we said matzah to the exclusion of chametz. When it came to tzali, when it came to the roasted, look what it says. Halal is tonight. Kuloi tzali. Everything is roasted, exclusively roasted. Which would mean
So they roasted the
the
Hagiga.
Chagiga must have been roasted also. Tosis points that out, but there is an opinion which says that the Chagiga must be roasted. And according to that opinion, you would say Kuloi tzali. But if it wasn't that opinion, if you were following the other opinion which says the Chagiga could have been cooked, then you take the word kuloi out. and we keep it like maror. All the night of the year we eat other kinds of meat, and tonight we're particular to have roasted, not exclusively roasted, because you could have other meats like the chagiga, which may not have not been roasted according to those opinions.
Yeah, but the fact that we
Follow?
don't eat any meat. Well, we eat other meat, right?
When?
Oh, no. We
To-
do- we
today,
do-
nowadays
yeah,
you do,
we
but in the olden days, all you would have had for your
yeah.
meat is a chagiga or your pesach. And the kid would ask, if you're following the opinion which says that the chagiga is roasted, then the kid could ask, tonight we're exclusively roasted. If you're of the opinion which says that the chagiga could have been cooked another way, then you would say, halal hazeh tzali. Tonight we're particular to have roasted. But you would take the word kuloi, which is exclusively out. Just like by the maror, you don't say tonight it's exclusively maror. You say tonight we're particular about maror, not to the exclusion of other vegetables. So tonight we're particular to have a roasted meat on your Pesach, not to the exclusion of other kinds of meat. Because your chagiga could have been cooked. Unless you're of the opinion that the chagiga is also roasted, in which case you could say, tonight we're exclusively eating roasted meat. Follow it?
But
Yeah, okay.
That's how it says in the Gemara.
The Mishnah says kula tzoli.
Right, so how is it? So there's another opinion? that-
Yes, Taisus points out that this is following the opinion. Taisus points out that this is following the opinion which says the chagiga is roasted. Okay?
The beautiful beginning for the unfolding of the story.
Yeah.
To tell children, when we think of all the tales that are told, it's absolutely brilliant to begin with. Why is this like so different from all other things?
Yeah.
Magnificent.
Moreover,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
what
lesson in
the
education.
story is.
It's a lesson in education.
Yeah.
How to tell it.
You have to get the kid curious. It's the most important factor of the whole thing. Not giving them information. The more important thing giving them information is to get them curious.
Most kids would just say, why are we eating this instead of bread?
That's the kid's asking. Why are we eating matzah instead of chametz?
Yeah.
We always have matzah, but we always have bread too.
Why
That's
not?
what is exactly the question. Yeah. Okay. What's interesting is that we haven't even done half these things, but we're making the kid ask the question about them.
Didn't they?
We haven't done half the things yet. We haven't eaten matzah yet because we're still before Magid. We haven't dipped twice because we're about to ask that question. We haven't eaten maror yet. We haven't eaten our Pesach offering yet. So, anyway, sorry. Huh?
What if they didn't have ovens in those days?
They had other kinds.
So what if they roasted all of it? So the kid would just be left with
No question.
bread.
What if they only had maror in that region? I don't know. Okay, another question. Other nights, so we had 3 questions so far. Matzah, maror, and roasted meat. That was the question 3, which again, we don't have today because we have no temple. We're not roasting meat. Question 4. All the nights of the year, skip the parentheses because the Gemara is going to fix it for us. Anu, it should say, no, keep the ain.
Are we in the Gemara section now?
No, we're still in the Mishnah, but the Gemara puts the parentheses there, and the Gemara is going to fix it up. The Mishnah puts parentheses there, but the Gemara is going to ask about this version of the Gemara, and it's going to fix it up. It says like this. It should say like this. Ein anu matbilin pam achas. We don't dip even once. Or sorry, anu matbilin pam achas. All the nights of the year we dip once. That's what it should say. The Gemara is going to fix up the version to the way we have it today, which is we don't even dip once. The Gemara is going to fix it up. But the Mishnah, as it's written right now, should read the way the Gemara addresses it is we dip once every night. Which the Gemara is going to ask, what do you mean? Why do we dip every night? And the Gemara is going to fix the version to the way we have it, which is we don't even dip once. But for now, we'll read it the way the Gemara asks on it, which is we dip once every other night. Halal hazeh tonight, shtei pam, we're dipping twice. End of the 4 questions. Which question is missing? The 4 questions, as the Mishnah said it here, is matzah, maror.
Table, the Cairo.
That's not part of the 4 questions, though.
No.
It's a curiosity we do, but not part of the 4 questions. The 4 questions we have, as we have it here, is maror. First matzah, then maror, then roasted, then dipping. Which question do we ask in the 4 questions that the kid?
Cups of wine.
It's not in our 4 questions. In our manashtana, it's not there. What other items in our manashtana? Remember, leaning. We ask, why do we lean? Here, it's not here. We'll get to that when we get to the Shulchan Aruch. We'll see that. Okay. Then the Gemara says, "Olafi daita shalben," based on the child's understanding of Malamda, the father will answer the questions and explain to him the story based on his understanding. 2 qualifiers in how the answer should be given. Two qualifiers for how the answer to the question should be given. So the Mishnah does not tell you what to say. The Mishnah gives you an outline of what you should be doing, of how to answer the question. What you should say, the Gemara is going to get to in a second.
What you should be doing?
Yeah, what's the outline? Doesn't tell you here's a text of your answer. It tells you here's a text of your questions.
The questions have been read.
Questions have been read, and the Gemara and the Mishnah tells you here are the questions you got to teach your kid to ask. Right? It doesn't even say necessarily that you have to tell him to say these words. Teach him these questions. Teach him what. Remember, what Banashtana is not part of the question. It's an introduction of what the father is teaching you. So the Mishnah is saying, teach your kid what's different about tonight. Here are 4 things that are different. It doesn't say to say these words. Just teach him those 4 things that are different, so he knows to ask in your own words, in a way that he can get it. Okay, meaning we're pre-printed Haggadahs.
Yeah.
We don't have printed Haggadahs. We don't have outlines like this.
I think I'm-
We don't have the words, text written out. We have the Mishnah telling us what to do. Now go figure it out. So teach your kids what's different about tonight. Here are 4 things different. Go tell them. Now answer the question. Once you understood that tonight's different, go answer the question. What did you tell him? I don't know. Tell him something that's gonna make sense to him. Right? But here are 2 things. Here's how you have to how you have to answer the question. 2 things. Number 1, your storyline should have the following arc. It should begin literally in a place of shame and end in praise. Like every good story, it starts out dramatic, troublesome. The kids, whatever the story is, the character, the hero of the story is lost. And at the end, the story comes out praiseworthy. That's the storyline you got to tell your kid. Start out the story by telling him how terrible things were, shame. That's the word here, gnosis, shame, or derogatory. And then conclude with shvach, with praise. We're in such a good place now. So what's this? What's the beginning part and what's the end part of the story? Where's the shame and what's the glory? What do you think it is?
We were enslaved.
We were enslaved. That's
It was a
shameful.
bitter
It was
time.
a bitter time.
And then now we.
And now we're liberated.
We lean and we're.
Now we're liberated. Good. Yeah, that's one version of the story. The Gemara is going to give us a different, another one, second version. But this is the Gemara. The Mishnah telling us the outline. When you tell the kid the answer, we're not telling you what to say. Lefi daita shel ben. Tell him the story based on what he understands. You know your kid. You know how smart he is. You know he'll be able to understand. Tell him a story that he'll understand. So long as the story begins in a place of negative and ends in a place of positive. Qualification number 1. Qualification number 2. See, the next item is either, we'll see when the Rebbe's got the commentary, either it's part of the answer you have to give, or it's a separate thing. Once you finish answering a question, now do the following. There's different ways to understand this Mishnah. What the Mishnah is about to tell us to do is either part of the answer you're supposed to give to your kid, or once you've done answer, here's something else you have to do, which is, there's a section in the Torah in which the Torah itself describes the story of the Exodus. Specifically, the Torah says that when you have your first fruit, the bikurim, you bring it in the basket, your best beautiful fruit, and you march up to the Temple Mount, and you go to the temple, you put the ark, and you hand the basket of fruit to the kohen. And the Torah says, when you do so, you should recite the following declaration. And then the Torah itself gives a whole declaration you're supposed to recite as you deliver the fruit. And the gist of the declaration is as follows. There was an Aramean named Lavan who tried to get rid of my great grandfather named Yaakov. And from there, my father went down to Egypt. And from there, he was enslaved. And it was terrible. And you listened to our cries. You got to listen to our cries. And you took us out of Egypt. And you brought us to the land of Israel. And you blessed the land of Israel. And you blessed it with fruit. And here are my fruit. Thank you very much. So in this declaration that the Torah tells you to say, as you hand the Bikurim, it's an outline of the story of the Exodus. So says the Mishnah, read that story, and don't just read it. Doidish, expound upon it. Go through line by line of that text and explain it, expound upon it. Okay. So that instruction is either in addition to the answer that you gave him, which began with shame and ended in glory, or this is part of it. Part of your answer is use that text, because that text begins in shame. It begins with, my father was tortured by Lavan, and then he was in Egypt. It's shameful. And then it's in glory. We're here in Israel, with the land with the beautiful fruit. So either this instruction to elaborate on these verses is a continuation of the Gemara telling you how to answer your kid's question, or in addition. First of all, you got to answer the quiz question following this model of beginning with shame and ending in glory. Number one. Having done that, here's a second obligation you have to do to tell the story. Expound on the verses of.
Maybe it's like the first one is, okay, we give you the outline, and then positivity, or if you don't, if that's too difficult, here's the template. Use the-
I was actually going to say the reverse. The
Oh,
first
oh,
part
the
is,
reverse?
I'll tell you why I said the verse. Because the first part is answer the question in a way that your kid can understand. Who said my kid can understand this complicated verse that goes for 10 pages long? With explanations too. My kid's 5. He understands one sentence. Now that he got that, now you go and elaborate on these words. Or, see, your point. No. Here, you want a template on how to tell the kid the story? Here's the story. Here's the template. Right? So one of the two. Either it's a continuation of the Gemara's first instruction, or it's a new instruction. We obviously do all of it. In our Haggadah is built on answering the question to the child, beginning with shame, ending in glory. 2 versions of that, as we'll see in the Gemara. And then we also, in our Haggadah, go through the psukim of the verses describing this declaration, and we go line by line with paragraph explaining each word. Right? If you look in the Haggadah now, you'll see it. We quote these verses, and then the Gemara says, the Haggadah will say, this line that you declare the declaration is a reference to following. This word of the declaration is a reference to the following. This word is written to the following, and it goes through the entire story using that outline from the Gemara. Okay, from the Mishnah, I'm sorry. From the declaration that we make at the Bikurim, as the Mishnah has told us to do. Okay, so what do we get from our Mishnah? We got number one, we got to fill up a second cup of wine just before the recitation of the Haggadah. It's got to start off with the kid asking, either he figured it out himself or you're teaching him the distinctions that make tonight different. So you should ask about them. 4 things the Gemara told us to tell to your child about: matzah, marar, roasted, and dipping. And finally, you got to talk to him on his level with a story outline that begins in negative and ends in positive. And you have a model from the verses, which does that. So read those verses and expound upon them. You already have 7-8 pages of Haggadah already. Okay. Tomorrow, God willing, we'll look at the Gemara. The Gemara will dissect each of these pieces, and then we'll look at the Shulchan Aruch as it lays it out for us.
Thank you.
A wonderful day, Eden.
Back on Wednesday.